Science just caught up with the Bible again. The 10 plagues of Egypt that were told in Exodus were real. Archaeologists just found this, and it is even more confirmation that it happened. It says here that they found a 3,000-year-old Egyptian scroll that talks about the plagues. This is apart from the Bible. This is an Egyptian scroll that shows a record of what happened. And it says here that it lines up with almost the exact same of the events that was recorded in Exodus. And on top of that, physical evidence from the same period shows abandoned cities, mass graves, and signs of national collapse in Egypt. These discoveries are forcing historians to reconsider what many once called myth. The Bible's account of the plagues is now backed by records from Egypt. The Bible isn't just a book of stories, it's a record of history that science is still catching up to. Follow and subscribe for more, and make sure to watch the video pinned below or in the bio to make sure you're going to heaven.
Well, debunking this Christian's lies will not take too long and will not be hard. Doesn't even require that you do that much research in order to debunk it. He is speaking of the Ipuwer Papyrus. The Ipuwer Papyrus, which the first lie is that he's saying that scientists have just now discovered. The Ipuwer Papyrus was actually discovered in 1828. So it's been around for a long time and is currently in the hands of the Dutch government. It was sold to the Dutch government by its original founder. And so you can go look at it, you can go read it. And many have went and looked, and many have went and read. And when you read and compare the Ipuwer Papyri, you will come to an understanding that it does not validate the story of Exodus at all. One of the first things that you'll realize is that the dating, the time frame doesn't work. Even though the Ipuwer Papyrus that we have right now dates to the time frame of the 1200s BCE, which depending upon which Christian you're talking to, you're going to get the Moses story in the 1300 BCE, or you're going to get the Moses story in 1500 BCE, 1400 BCE. It depends on which version of Christian you're talking to. One version will state the claim based on the statement of Solomon, which puts it back into around 1400 to 1500 BCE. Whereas others, based on other statements that are said in there, the building of the city of Pi Ramses, you have to put it in the 1200s BCE. So you got different versions of the story, different time frame. But the Ipuwer Papyri, which was dated to be around 1200 BCE, it is also recognized that it is not the original story. The original writing wasn't done in 1200 BCE, but it is part of the admonitions of the gods that goes back to around 1900 to 1800 BCE. So regardless of what time frame you put the Moses story in, the actual writings of Ipuwer were done in the 1900s to 1800s BCE. Now, here's the thing about it. When you recognize this, one of the reasons why they recognize this is because the name Ipuwer was only a name that was utilized from the 1900s to around 1450 BCE. After that, that would not have been a common name. Plus, the events that it is mentioning and talking about are events that have been also compared to other Kemetic writings of the time, whether it's the prophecy of Nefertiti or another writings of Ammunition by Serenetsu III. These were compared to those, they all line up as to be part of the same type of propaganda or historical account, because the Serenetsu, it's propagandist, well-known propagandist during his time frame. But the other being a historical account of a bad leadership, things being flipped upside down, which leads me into my next aspect of why this video, this creator, is sadly mistaken. It does not line up with the Exodus story at all. For one thing, and the most important thing that you have to realize, is that the Ipuwer Papyri talks about people, Asiatic people, arriving in Egypt. That does not match up with the Exodus story, because Exodus is to exit, to leave. This is Asiatic people arriving. Now, for some of you, you may want to say that, oh, well, this is talking about Joseph when Joseph and all his family came. Then maybe that's what they're talking about. Except for the problem with that is the timeline still doesn't add up. Even if you put them in the 1500s, you only get about 200 years earlier. So that's 1700s BCE. So you still don't line up as far as the time. And then when you look at what was going on in the kingdom that the Imperial Papyrus is talking about, which also goes against the Exodus story, it still doesn't line up. Whether it's the Exodus story or the Joseph story. And that is the fact that it talks about how the whole society has been turned upside down. The rich are now poor and the poor are now rich. A young girl was looking at her reflection in the river, and now she has a mirror. And you have to understand, at their time frame, to own a mirror, it was a sign of opulence. That people were desecrating the graves of the pharaohs, and they were allowed to do it. That a new leadership needed to come in. It talked about, yes, and this is what they mainly hooked into, that the river wears blood. But there's a very big distinction that you would have to realize. According to the Bible, in the Exodus story, all the rivers, all the water in Egypt turned to blood. The Imperial Papyrus is only talking about the Nile River being like blood, and that people had to get their water from elsewhere, meaning they had to get their water from wells or other streams. So most likely, scientifically, there was some type of red sediment, which is a normal thing that happens to the Nile River ever so often when the red sediment is washed down from if it's a heavy rainy season in the land of Kush for them. This would be your Sudan, Ethiopia, all this area, that if there's a heavy rainy season, then more red sediment washes down, or in this case, up into the Nile River Valley, creating a toxic situation where you can't pull your water from the Nile River. But in the Bible, all the waters in Egypt turned to blood. There were no waters. But then somehow they miraculously dug next to the river and they got some water. The Imperial Papyrus speaks nothing of the animals dying and all these other sorts of things. It talks about the society going through a rough patch, about a downturn economically, politically, morally, and how everything was just flipped upside down. This is in no way validates the Bible. And as far as scientists finding ancient cities, well, the ancient city of Tanis would fit into the time frame of the Imperial Papyri, its original writing. But as far as the time frame of the Imperial Papyri, they believe that they know where the city of Pi-Ramses is. They're trying to excavate for it. And they're always finding ancient cities that date back to multiple time frames within Egypt, whether it's the ancient city of Aten or Heliopolis. They're always finding ancient cities because there's a lot of them around there. And all you got to do is just dig anywhere near the Nile River Valley, and you're going to find some ancient cities. It's kind of like being in Italy. You drive the streets of Rome, and all of a sudden a construction site had to stop because they found an ancient Roman column. Shit's everywhere. So y'all keep on. And this guy saying that follow more if you want to go to heaven, that's that final threat to make you feel emotionally tied to this religion by fear. And this is why we deconstruct, because we remove the emotional attachment so that there is no fear of going to this hell, this lake of fire, and heaven is your other alternative. We have our alternative, and that is the one you decide. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.